The galaxy laughed at Earth. For centuries, humans had struggled even to leave their own planet while the alien civilizations thrived among the stars. The Council of Stars, a gathering of the most powerful empires, saw Earth as a small joke in a vast universe. They mocked humans as weak, divided, and fragile creatures who fought more with themselves than with outsiders. When the Council decided to broadcast Earth's destruction countdown, it was not treated as war but as entertainment. Their fleets surrounded the solar system, and their voices echoed across the stars. To them, Earth's end would be a spectacle. Yet, something strange happened. Earth went silent. No signals, no news, no transmissions. The humans who had once filled the skies with noise now gave nothing. To the aliens, silence meant surrender. But they were wrong. In the shadows, humanity was preparing something different, something that would turn the stars themselves into weapons. Alien fleets mocked Earth through public transmissions. 100 ships against one, their commanders laughed, their voices dripping with arrogance. They called Earth the orphan of the stars, a lonely planet with no allies and no future. On alien channels, crowds cheered as if this war were a game. Yet somewhere deep underground, hidden beneath layers of stone and steel, a single human pilot sat watching the broadcasts. His face was calm, his eyes cold. He listened to every insult, every threat, every laugh, and he did not flinch. When the alien commander boasted that Earth would be erased in one strike, the pilot allowed himself a thin smile. The galaxy believed humanity had no chance, but he knew what was waiting. Scouts from the alien fleets were the first to land. They expected chaos, desperate humans screaming for mercy, cities ablaze in panic. Instead, they found something far stranger. The cities were empty. Streets that once carried millions were silent. Homes stood without life. Factories were cold. There were no people. The humans had vanished. Orbit scans showed odd energy readings coming from deep underground, but nothing on the surface gave answers. The aliens grew suspicious. This was not the surrender they had imagined. Why was Earth so calm? Why did it seem like a stage set for something else? Still, their commanders brushed away the unease. They are hiding because they are afraid, they said. But some of the younger soldiers whispered among themselves that silence is not always weakness. Sometimes, silence is preparation. Then the first strike came. Alien fleets moved closer, confident in their numbers. They had brought 100 ships against a single planet, and they thought victory was already theirs. They fired volleys of plasma and light, cutting through Earth's skies, expecting no resistance. Earth did not fight back. The aliens laughed again, mocking what they thought was cowardice. Then the stars flickered. At first, it seemed like a trick of the eye. But then the sun itself pulsed unnaturally, releasing a wave of energy no alien sensor had ever recorded. In an instant, one entire alien fleet was consumed in fire. Ships that had stood unchallenged for centuries turned into burning wreckage. Shock spread through the alien command. This was no accident. This was human design. The truth slowly emerged. Humanity had discovered a terrible secret. They had found a way to ignite stars themselves, turning suns into burning traps. Every alien fleet that entered a human-prepared system was not attacking a planet but walking into a furnace. For years, humans had hidden their experiments, working in silence while the galaxy laughed. They had learned to weaponize the very heart of creation, to make suns burn hotter, faster, deadlier. The aliens realized with horror that humans were not weak. They were desperate. And desperation makes a species dangerous beyond measure. Captured during the chaos, an alien general faced human interrogators. Under the weight of defeat, he admitted the truth to his own people. They do not fight to win, he whispered. They fight to survive. That makes them unstoppable. The message spread across alien ranks, breaking their pride. Soldiers who once mocked humans now looked at the stars with fear, wondering which one would ignite next. For the first time, alien morale began to crack. In the grand chambers of the Council of Stars, leaders who had laughed at Earth only weeks before now argued in panic, their voices no longer proud but filled with dread. Humanity did not wait. They rose from their silent Earth and spread across space, moving with speed and precision. Small human fleets, often no more than a handful of ships, lured massive alien forces into systems where stars had been prepared. Again and again, the traps were sprung. Suns burned with unnatural fury, tearing alien fleets apart. Entire armadas were reduced to ash, while human ships escaped into the shadows. The hunters had become the hunted. For the first time in galactic history, the great alien empires felt fear not from each other, but from the fragile species they had mocked. And then, at last, the silence broke. Across every frequency, across every corner of the galaxy, a human transmission cut through the void. The voice was calm, steady, without anger yet filled with something colder than rage. "You mocked us. Now watch the stars burn." No more words followed. Only silence remained, but the message was clear. From system to system, alien worlds went dark. Human traps ignited suns until the sky itself seemed to burn with vengeance. The galaxy had thought Earth was finished, a weak planet ready to kneel. Instead, Earth had risen in fire. The lesson was written not in books, but in burning stars: humanity never backs down. In the end, the Council of Stars no longer laughed. Their broadcasts stopped. Their people whispered in fear. Across every empire, mothers told their children to be quiet at night, lest the humans hear them. The galaxy finally understood that the weakest-looking species could be the most dangerous. The stars, once symbols of hope and beauty, now carried the memory of human wrath. And deep in the silence of space, humanity prepared for the next step, no longer the orphan of the stars but their master. The scouts who landed on Earth expected fear. They expected chaos. They expected to see humans screaming in the streets, governments broken, armies begging for mercy. Instead, they found silence. Cities that had once been alive with light and noise were now abandoned. Streets were empty. Towers stood tall but dark. Homes still had furniture, food, even lights flickering in some rooms, but no people. It was as if humanity had stepped away all at once, leaving only the echo of their presence behind. The alien scouts moved carefully through the ruins, their armored boots striking against cracked pavement. The sound felt too loud in such quietness. "Where are they?" one scout muttered through his helmet. No answer came. From orbit, commanders watched the feeds with growing suspicion. Their scans confirmed what their soldiers saw: Earth was empty on the surface. Billions of humans had disappeared. Underground, one officer concluded. "They are hiding like insects in caves." Yet his voice did not sound confident. The readings from the deep crust of Earth were unusual, showing patterns of energy that should not exist. The commanders told themselves it was nothing, just fear playing tricks. But deep inside, even they felt something was wrong. The alien soldiers pushed further into the empty cities. They moved through silent markets where food still sat on the stalls, untouched. They passed classrooms where books were still open, as if children had been reading them only minutes before. The silence was heavy, almost suffocating. Some soldiers began to feel watched. They turned sharply at shadows, raised their rifles at broken windows, yet nothing was there. Humanity had vanished, but it did not feel like they had gone far. Above Earth, alien ships circled the planet like vultures. Their commanders mocked what they saw. "They have run to the dirt," one laughed. "They have buried themselves alive." The fleets broadcast this message across the galaxy, feeding the arrogance of their kind. But on Earth, in the ruins of the cities, one of the scouts discovered something strange. It was a chamber beneath an old subway system. The walls were covered in machines, not alien in design, but human. The machines pulsed with a faint blue glow, like the heartbeat of something alive. The scout bent down, scanning the device. The readings confused his equipment. The machine was drawing power not from wires or generators but from something far larger, something deep below. He touched his helmet to speak. "Commander, we have found," his voice cut off. A sudden pulse of energy surged through the chamber. The soldier screamed as his armor systems failed, his body frozen in light. His comrades dragged him back, but his suit melted around him, leaving only ash. From orbit, the commanders demanded answers. The surviving scouts transmitted what they had seen, and fear rippled through the alien ranks. "What are the humans building?" one asked. No one answered. The energy signatures grew stronger, spreading across every scan, yet the surface of Earth remained calm and lifeless. In the command chambers of the fleet, arguments began. Some wanted to burn the planet immediately, to glass its surface and end the mystery. Others warned that such rash action might trigger whatever the humans had hidden. "They are primitive," one admiral argued. "They cannot challenge us." But another leaned closer, his voice low. "We thought they were primitive when they vanished. We thought they were primitive when they made our fleet burn in their star trap. How many more mistakes will we make before we admit we do not understand them?" The Council of Stars, watching from far away, grew impatient. They had promised the galaxy a show, and they wanted Earth destroyed on schedule. Messages crackled through the fleet, demanding progress. The commanders swallowed their doubts and prepared for the next wave. "If the humans hide underground," they said, "then we will drag them out." They ordered heavy bombardments to target the crust, striking deep into the planet's mantle. The sky above Earth burned with fire as weapons rained down. Mountains split. Oceans boiled. Dust clouds rose to choke the air. Yet even through the destruction, the strange energy signals did not weaken. In fact, they grew stronger. Every blast, every impact, every strike seemed to feed the machines below, as if the humans had turned Earth itself into a trap. The aliens realized too late what was happening. Their attacks were giving power to whatever humanity had built. From beneath the planet's crust, enormous shockwaves rose. Cities that had seemed empty began to glow faintly from below, their streets trembling as the hidden structures came alive. Vast networks of machines that stretched through Earth's deep tunnels awakened. The entire planet seemed to pulse like a beating heart. On the alien command ship, silence filled the room as they watched the readings climb higher. "This is not defense," one officer whispered. "This is preparation." The commander's hands trembled over his console. For the first time, he felt fear of a species they had mocked for centuries. In the deepest tunnels of Earth, far below the ruined surface, humanity waited. Millions of people lived in vast underground cities, their faces lit by the glow of the machines. Children pressed against thick glass walls to watch the pulse of blue energy surge through the ground. Soldiers stood ready at their posts, their weapons charged. Engineers whispered to each other as they watched numbers climb across their screens. And in the heart of it all, the single human pilot who had smiled at the alien broadcasts stood inside a control chamber. He placed his hand on a panel, his eyes locked on the stars above. "They think we are weak," he said quietly. "Let them come closer." Above Earth, the alien fleets moved into formation, preparing for one final strike. Their voices were arrogant still, but in their hearts, unease grew. Something about the silence of Earth, something about the strange glow beneath its crust, told them this was no surrender. This was a trap waiting to be sprung. And yet, blinded by pride, they pushed forward. The countdown to humanity's second strike had already begun. The alien fleets moved into formation above Earth. From their view in orbit, the blue-green planet looked fragile, scarred from bombardments, covered in rising dust and fire. To the commanders, it was a planet already broken. They prepared for the final strike, believing one more wave would end humanity forever. Yet, deep inside, many soldiers felt uneasy. The silence of Earth was unnatural. No surrender messages, no desperate pleas, no cries for mercy. Just silence. And silence in war was dangerous. The admiral of the lead fleet stood before his officers, his armored cloak draped across his shoulders. His voice was cold as he gave the order. "Prepare to fire. Target the deep crust. Flush them out. Burn the insects where they hide." His officers obeyed, though their hands trembled. Across the fleet, weapons charged, their barrels glowing with deadly light. The sky above Earth lit up as the first volleys rained down again, tearing into the planet's crust. Explosions rolled across mountains and seas. Oceans hissed into steam. Yet the strange readings from beneath Earth did not weaken. They grew stronger. On the command screens, waveforms spiked to levels never recorded before. "Admiral," one officer shouted. "The humans, they are feeding on the energy. Our bombardments are powering something below." The admiral snarled, refusing to believe it. Impossible. They are primitives. Continue firing. But even as he spoke, the planet began to change. The ground cracked open in massive fissures, glowing blue from within. Rivers of light spread across continents like veins carrying fire. From orbit, it looked as though Earth itself was awakening. The fleets hesitated, watching in disbelief. Then, all at once, the stars flickered. Not the distant stars of the galaxy, but the sun itself. The great burning sphere at the heart of the system pulsed unnaturally, dimming for a moment before flaring back with violent energy. Alien instruments screamed with warnings. The admiral froze. He knew this was no accident. In the control chamber deep underground, the human pilot placed both hands on the glowing panel before him. The machines around him roared with power, feeding on the energy of the alien bombardment. Engineers watched in awe as the sun's readings spiked. The pilot's voice was calm, almost steady, as he spoke. Initiate ignition sequence. The machines obeyed. In space, the alien fleets were preparing to fire again when the sun erupted. A massive solar flare burst outward, striking like a tidal wave of fire. Ships caught in the blast were torn apart instantly, their metal shells melting like wax. Entire squadrons vanished in seconds, swallowed by burning plasma. The fleet scrambled to retreat, but the flare was too fast, too wide. Communication channels filled with screams before cutting into static. The admiral's eyes widened in horror as half of his fleet vanished in fire. This was no natural storm. This was human design. The survivors pulled back, their formation broken. Panic spread through the ranks. They can control the sun, one shouted. They are turning their star into a weapon. The truth hit them harder than any blast. Humans, the species they had mocked as weak, had done the impossible. They had found a way to ignite their own sun and bend its fury against invaders. It was not victory born of strength. It was survival born of desperation. And desperation made them terrifying. On the alien homeworlds, the live broadcasts went silent. Billions of citizens who had gathered to watch Earth's destruction now stared in disbelief as they saw alien fleets burn. The spectacle meant to entertain had become a nightmare. On the Council of Stars, the great leaders shouted over one another, their pride collapsing into fear. This cannot be, one cried. No primitive world can bend a star. But the evidence was clear. Humanity had found a way to turn the very heart of creation into their shield and sword. On Earth, deep underground, the humans did not cheer. They did not smile. Their faces were grim. They knew the fight had only begun. Soldiers stood ready, engineers reset the systems, and families huddled together in the glowing tunnels. They had survived this wave, but more fleets were coming. The galaxy would never forgive what they had just seen. Humanity had revealed its weapon, and now every empire would unite to destroy them. But the humans were not afraid. They had lived too long on the edge of extinction to fear it now. The alien admiral, his fleet broken, stared at the burning wreckage outside his ship's viewport. He thought of the words he had once mocked. 100 ships against one. Now half of those ships were gone, destroyed not by fire from cannons but by the fury of a star. He turned slowly to his officers, his voice hollow. We underestimated them. This is not a war of conquest. This is a war of survival. And they will not stop. His words spread quickly through the survivors. Fear took root where arrogance once lived. In the control chamber, the human pilot leaned back, sweat running down his face. He looked up at the screens showing the burning remains of the alien fleet. His eyes were cold, but his voice carried a quiet promise. This was only the first strike. The room fell silent, heavy with the knowledge of what that meant. Humanity had shown the galaxy a glimpse of its power. The real war was just beginning. Far across space, alien civilizations that had laughed at Earth now trembled. They understood too late what silence had meant. Humanity had not surrendered. Humanity had prepared. And now, the stars themselves would burn. Long before the alien fleets surrounded Earth, long before the Council of Stars mocked humanity, a secret had been growing in the dark. It began with fear. Humanity had seen the galaxy's power, had watched alien warships cut through space like blades, had listened to their broadcasts calling humans weak. World governments knew that if Earth faced an invasion, no army or weapon could defend against such force. The first contact had not brought peace, it had brought terror. That terror became fuel. Deep beneath the planet's crust, in abandoned mines and hidden labs, scientists gathered in silence. No news channels spoke of their work, no leaders revealed their plans. Even the surface population did not know. But underground, in steel corridors without windows, humanity worked day and night. They asked a single question: how do you fight an enemy who outnumbers you 100 to 1? The answer was not to fight them with equal weapons. The answer was to fight with something no one else dared to touch. It started with the sun. Astronomers had always studied its storms, its flares, its dangerous bursts of radiation. But one team discovered patterns others had ignored. They saw that solar activity could be influenced, not controlled, not commanded, but nudged, pushed, triggered. Small tests were made with artificial satellites, feeding energy into the magnetic fields. The results were terrifying. A burst 100 times stronger than predicted ripped across space. The satellites melted, but the experiment proved something: stars could be made to burn on command. The scientists presented their findings to a hidden council of Earth's leaders. Some were horrified. If we fail, one argued, we could destroy ourselves. But others saw no choice. Humanity had no fleets, no allies, no place in the galaxy's power. Their only chance was desperation. And so the project was approved. They called it Project Hearthfire. Years passed in silence while the galaxy laughed. Human engineers dug vast tunnels, building machines that linked deep into Earth's crust. The devices were not weapons themselves, they were amplifiers, converters, channels of energy that reached out to the sun like invisible hands. When alien scans probed Earth, they saw nothing but primitive technology. They never looked deep enough. That was humanity's shield, invisibility. The work was brutal. Thousands died in accidents as the machines grew. Some were lost in underground collapses. Others burned when experimental cores overheated. Yet no one spoke a word. Every worker knew what they were building was the difference between extinction and survival. They buried their dead and kept working. The silence of Earth became not fear but sacrifice. In the command archives, the records show the first full test. A group of scientists gathered in a control chamber, faces pale under dim lights. They activated the system. For one terrible moment, nothing happened. Then the sun pulsed. The instruments spiked off the charts. A solar storm erupted, tearing through the outer solar system, shattering human satellites like toys. The scientists stared in horror and awe. They had done it. They had made a star burn brighter. But there was one problem: the weapon could not be used without drawing attention. If the aliens knew, they would strike before the system was complete. And so Earth stayed silent. The governments of the world stopped their broadcasts. They shut down signals. The planet pretended to fall quiet, as if surrendering to despair. All the while, the tunnels grew deeper, the machines grew stronger, and the system spread across continents. The human pilot who now stood at the heart of Earth's defense had been there from the beginning. He was a young soldier then, tasked with guarding the scientists. But he watched as they died for their work, watched as they wrote their last notes while smoke filled the labs. He swore an oath over their bodies: humanity would not die for nothing. That soldier became the one chosen to sit in the control chamber when the time came. The aliens never saw it coming. When they mocked Earth, calling it the orphan of the stars, the humans were already finished building their weapon. When they laughed at Earth's silence, they did not understand that silence meant the machine was alive and waiting. When they bombarded the planet's crust, they only fed more power into the system. And when the sun burned half their fleet, humanity revealed only the beginning of its secret. In the Council of Stars, panic erupted. Reports came in from their surviving admirals, voices broken and fearful. "They have learned to ignite suns," one screamed. The counselors shouted in disbelief. No species could ever, but the evidence was undeniable. The broadcasts meant to humiliate Earth had become evidence of humanity's power. Billions across alien worlds watched the replays in silence. For the first time, they feared the fragile species from the small blue planet. On Earth, in the underground cities, the truth was spoken aloud at last. Humanity's leaders gathered the people, their voices echoing through the tunnels. They told them what had been built, why they had vanished from the surface, why their silence had lasted so long. The people listened, not with fear but with pride. For the first time, they knew that they were not only defending themselves, they were making history. The human pilot stood before the crowd, his face grim. "We have been mocked. We have been hunted. But now, we hold the fire of the stars in our hands. They will not stop until we are ash. But neither will we. Let the galaxy remember this day. Humanity is no longer the orphan of the stars. We are their fire." The people roared, their voices carrying through the caverns. For a species once divided by nations and wars, something new was born that day: unity. Not because of hope, but because of desperation. And in that unity, the galaxy had found its most dangerous enemy. The alien fleets pulled back from Earth, broken and afraid. Half their strength had been erased in a single flare of the sun, and the survivors carried the scars of fire across their ships. For the first time in living memory, the galaxy's most powerful warriors had fled from a planet they considered weak. The news spread faster than light, racing across every world, every colony, every council hall. What was meant to be a show of alien dominance had turned into a story of terror. The name Earth was no longer spoken with laughter. It was spoken with unease. In the chaos of retreat, one alien cruiser was captured. Humanity's trap had not only burned fleets but had disabled ships, leaving some drifting and helpless. Human strike teams, silent and efficient, boarded one such vessel. They fought through its corridors, each step echoing with gunfire, until the alien general himself was cornered in the command chamber. His name had once carried fear across the stars, but now he stood trembling, his armor cracked, his soldiers defeated. The general was dragged underground into the hidden cities of Earth. There, under the harsh light of steel corridors, he faced the leaders of humanity. His eyes, dark and filled with hate, studied the faces of the species he once mocked. "You cannot win," he spat, his voice echoing. "We will return with 1,000 fleets. We will burn your world until nothing remains." The human commander, standing across from him, did not flinch. "You already tried," she said coldly. "And it was your fleet that burned." The general snarled, but his hands shook. 4 days, the humans questioned him. At first, he refused to speak, calling them insects, calling them cowards hiding in the dirt. But slowly, cracks began to show. He saw the vast machines in the tunnels. He saw the faces of the civilians who lived underground, not afraid, but determined. And he saw the pilot, the man who had smiled at alien broadcasts, walking past him in silence, eyes colder than any weapon. Finally, the truth spilled from the general's lips, not in anger but in quiet despair. "You do not fight to win," he admitted. "You fight to survive. That makes you unstoppable." His words carried weight. Soldiers who overheard repeated them in whispers. Soon the entire underground city knew. And when the humans broadcast his confession across captured channels, the galaxy knew too. Alien morale began to collapse. Soldiers who had once laughed at the idea of war with Earth now hesitated. Stories spread of fleets turned to ash, of suns bending to human will. In mess halls and barracks, alien warriors spoke in hushed tones. They are desperate. They have nothing to lose. And nothing to lose is the most dangerous weapon of all. Back in the grand chambers of the Council of Stars, panic erupted. Leaders who had once broadcast Earth's destruction with smiles now shouted at each other in fear. Some demanded a full retreat, warning that every fleet sent would only feed humanity's legend. Others demanded total extermination, even if it meant sacrificing millions of their own. But behind their words was fear, raw and undeniable. For the first time in galactic history, the Council was divided not by greed but by terror. Messages from alien civilians flooded their governments. Parents demanded protection. Workers refused to join war factories. Traders avoided routes near human space. The idea of humans, small, fragile humans had become a shadow across the stars. Not because of strength, but because of defiance. On Earth, humanity watched the panic spread. Their leaders stood before the underground cities, speaking to their people. "They wanted us to kneel," one said. "Now they are the ones trembling. We are no longer the hunted. We are the fire they cannot escape." The people cheered, their voices echoing in the caverns. For the first time, hope was stronger than fear. The captured general sat in his cell, silent. He had once been a conqueror, feared by countless worlds. Now he was nothing more than a messenger of his species' failure. The humans did not kill him. They did not need to. His words had already broken the spirit of the council. His survival was a reminder to the galaxy, even the strongest could be humbled. In the tunnels, the pilot prepared again. He trained day and night, not for glory but for survival. His face showed no joy, no pride, only the cold focus of a man carrying the weight of billions. He knew the aliens would return. He knew more fleets were on their way. But he also knew humanity had already won the first true battle, not with weapons, but with fear. The galaxy had seen what humanity was willing to do, and fear would weaken every enemy that came next. Above the planet, wreckage from the first strike still floated in space, glowing like broken stars. The survivors who dared to approach saw the remains and whispered among themselves. Some spoke of retreat. Others spoke of surrender. But none spoke of victory. Not anymore. The Council of Stars, desperate to save face, tried to rally their people. They broadcast messages claiming the first strike was an accident, that Earth had only survived by luck. But no one believed them. The recordings of burning fleets, of screaming soldiers, of suns igniting could not be erased. The truth was alive, carried in every whisper across every world. And deep underground, humanity waited, ready. They knew the next wave would be larger. They knew the galaxy would try again. But now, the balance had shifted. The aliens were no longer hunters chasing prey. They were predators who had tasted fire, and they knew the prey would fight back with fury. The captured general's words became prophecy. They do not fight to win. They fight to survive. That makes them unstoppable. And somewhere in the silence of Earth, a quiet voice answered, "Then let them come." The galaxy thought Earth would wait. The Council of Stars believed humanity would stay hidden in their tunnels, afraid to leave the safety of their own world. They were wrong. Humanity had survived the first storm, but survival alone was not enough. The people of Earth knew the aliens would return with fleets even larger, numbers so great that even burning stars might not stop them. To live, they could not remain in the shadows. They had to rise. In the underground cities, engineers worked day and night. The machines that had ignited the sun were rebuilt, refined, copied. Smaller versions were created, each one capable of influencing stars and fueling the traps. New ships were born in hidden shipyards beneath oceans and mountains, their hulls forged from metals pulled from Earth's deepest veins. They were not large like alien warships. They were not beautiful. They were built for one purpose: survival. Humanity was not designing fleets to match their enemies in power. They were designing hunters. The first wave of these new human ships launched silently into space, leaving Earth behind like ghosts. They carried no banners, no bright signals. Only cold determination. Their orders were simple: strike, vanish, lure, and burn. The aliens did not expect them. Across distant systems, massive alien fleets gathered, preparing to strike again. Their commanders promised easy victory. Their soldiers whispered their fears in the dark, remembering the burning sun. And then the traps began. In one system, a small human fleet appeared at the edge of alien scanners. Barely a dozen ships, weak and fragile compared to the thousands arrayed against them. The aliens laughed. They moved forward, confident of easy prey. But the humans did not fight. They fled into the gravity well of the local star, retreating as if afraid. The aliens chased. When the last alien ship crossed the threshold, the star ignited in a fury of fire. 1 billion tons of plasma roared outward, erasing the fleet in seconds. Only the human ships escaped, vanishing back into the void. In another system, humans laid false signals, pretending to broadcast distress. Alien commanders rushed in, eager to claim glory. Instead, they found empty planets covered in strange machines that pulsed with stolen energy. Before they could retreat, the machines triggered. The planet cracked apart in a chain of detonations, the fragments slamming into the alien fleet. It was not war. It was slaughter. Again and again, the galaxy watched as alien numbers failed. Armadas of thousands hunted tiny human fleets, but the more they chased, the more they burned. The hunted had become the hunters. And every time another alien fleet died, the fear grew. On alien homeworlds, protests filled the streets. Citizens demanded the council end the war. Mothers cried for sons who never returned. Workers refused to build new ships, terrified that they would only become fuel for another human trap. The council tried to silence the unrest, but the truth could not be hidden. Humanity was no longer a weak planet begging for mercy. Humanity was spreading fire across the stars. On Earth, the underground cities were alive with energy. The people listened to the reports of victories, not with celebration, but with grim pride. They had lost too much to cheer. Every battle cost lives, every trap demanded sacrifice. But the sacrifices meant survival. For the first time in history, humans were not divided by nations or flags. They were united by desperation. And in that unity, they found strength greater than numbers. The captured alien general remained in his cell, watching as the humans' power grew. His pride was gone. He no longer called them insects. When asked what he thought now, he answered with quiet certainty. You are not fighting a war. You are teaching the galaxy a lesson. And they are too afraid to learn. In the control chamber, the human pilot studied the maps of the galaxy, dotted with systems where fleets had burned. His voice was steady as he spoke to the commanders. They outnumber us 100 to 1. Good. That means we have 100 traps to set. His words carried through the tunnels, through the underground halls, through the voices of every soldier preparing to rise into the stars. The Council of Stars grew desperate. Their fleets were breaking. Their soldiers were losing faith. Their people were rioting. In secret, some counselors whispered of surrender. Others plotted betrayal, hoping to save themselves even if their allies fell. The unity of the galaxy was fracturing, all because of the species they had mocked. Far away, in the silence of deep space, the small human fleets continued their work. They moved like shadows, striking where least expected, vanishing before the enemy could react. They did not fight fair. They did not fight clean. They fought to survive. And survival made them powerful. For the first time, alien admirals began refusing orders. They feared chasing human fleets into systems where stars themselves could turn into fire. They feared the silence of human transmissions, knowing it always hid a trap. They feared the cold voice that sometimes cut through their channels at the moment before death. You mocked us. Now watch the stars burn. The hunted had become the hunters. The galaxy was no longer laughing. It was running. The stars across the galaxy had grown quiet. The once mighty fleets of the Council of Stars were broken. Their vast armadas had been lured into traps, their soldiers consumed by suns, their commanders lost in fire. The aliens had mocked Earth, but now they whispered the name of humanity with fear. Still, the galaxy waited. They waited for Earth to speak, for humanity to explain why they had done this, for a signal of peace or surrender. But Earth remained silent. No transmissions. No speeches. No mercy. Silence was more terrifying than any weapon, for in silence the imagination creates horrors. Alien worlds trembled under the weight of that silence. On one planet, a father refused to let his children look at the night sky, afraid they would see the fire of burning fleets. On another, a government collapsed as riots filled the streets. Entire sectors begged the council to end the war, but the council had no answer. Their power was gone. Their fleets were ash. Their enemies were shadows that turned stars into death. In the underground command center of Earth, the leaders gathered. They were not dressed in medals or fine robes like the alien counselors. They were scarred men and women, survivors who had carried humanity through darkness. Before them, on a great screen, the map of the galaxy glowed. Countless systems were marked in red, showing where alien fleets had died. Slowly, the red marks spread, closing around the remaining worlds of the Council. The human pilot who had watched the aliens mock Earth now stood at the center of the room. His eyes were calm, his voice steady. They laughed at us. They thought us weak. But now they run. And it is time the galaxy learns the truth. The leaders nodded. The moment had come. For years humanity had endured silence, striking from the shadows, speaking only with fire. Now, one message would carry their voice across the stars. The transmission was prepared. Across the galaxy, alien signals were interrupted. Screens went dark. Voices cut off. The council chambers froze as the broadcast forced its way into every channel, every ship, every home. For the first time, in every corner of the galaxy, the same image appeared, a human face, lit only by the glow of fire. The silence broke. The pilot's voice was cold, calm, unshaken. You mocked us. You called us weak, fragile, divided. You thought our world was yours to burn. You were wrong. The words echoed through every system. No one moved. No one breathed. You came with numbers. 100 fleets for every one of ours. You laughed at the odds. You thought victory was certain. But you forgot one thing. We are human. And humans never back down. The message cut across alien battlefields, where terrified soldiers dropped their weapons. It reached alien homes, where families clutched one another in fear. It thundered inside the council chambers, where leaders stared in silence, their power crumbling. The human's voice grew harder, sharper, like steel drawn from fire. You believed survival was weakness. But survival is strength. We do not fight for conquest. We do not fight for glory. We fight because we must. And when humans fight to survive, there is nothing in the galaxy that can stop us. On the map behind him, more red lights appeared. Human fleets had struck again. Another alien system was burning. The pilot's eyes narrowed. His final words fell like a hammer across the stars. You mocked us. Now watch the stars burn. The transmission ended. Silence returned. But this silence was different. It was not fear. It was surrender. Alien commanders looked to their fleets and saw broken soldiers unwilling to fight. Entire worlds sent desperate messages of peace, begging for mercy. But humanity had not spoken of peace. Humanity had only spoken of survival. One by one, alien worlds went dark. Not all were destroyed. Many were left abandoned, their governments shattered, their will to fight gone. Humanity did not need to conquer them. Fear had already done the work. The galaxy's greatest alliance, once united in strength, was shattered by the will of a single world that refused to fall. On Earth, the underground cities began to open. Families emerged into the light. Children who had never seen the sky looked up and saw stars that had once been terrifying but now burned with hope. Humanity had not only survived. They had risen. The captured alien general watched the human transmission in silence. For a long time, he said nothing. Then, with quiet respect, he whispered, "The galaxy will never laugh again." The Council of Stars was gone. The galaxy was forever changed. And in the ruins of war, one truth remained clear: humanity had been mocked, but they had endured. Outnumbered 100 to 1, they had risen from the ashes. They had turned the stars into weapons. And they had proven to all who watched that humans never back down.